Chapter 11 of Boruto Vortex shows us Himawari displaying her proficiency using Kurama's power. We see Sarada finding out how important it is to always keep your guard up in a fight. Kawaki once again being reminded of the difference in power between him and Boruto. Boruto rushing in to save Himawari from Jura, then using Flying Raijin to save Sarada from Hidari, and then finding himself confronting the clone of his master and the father of his teammate and close friend. First, let's talk about Himawari versus Jura. After Himawari starts channeling Kurama's power, we see her use that same power to heal Inojin of his injuries. So just like a lot of us predicted, Inojin is still alive. However, after this, Himawari tells Team 10 to leave because she knows that they can't do anything against Jura. Shikadai, agreeing with her, convinces Chocho to go after trying to stay there and help Himawari. Jura, noticing this, says he is making the smart move and that he hopes they'll meet again, which is possible foreshadowing from Kishimoto to a likely confrontation between Jura and Shikadai in the future. Kind of like how Code told Shikamaru that he'll remember him and add him to the list of people he is going to kill. So I am wondering where that is going to go in the future. After they leave, Jura once again shows us his nature of wanting to understand why humans do some of the things that they do, because to him, Inojin only ended up the way he did because he didn't listen to Jura's warnings, which is true. He also wonders if there is any connection between Inojin's injuries and Himawari showing this power that she has right now. We know that emotions can help people bring out latent power, but Jura, being new to self-awareness, is still figuring things out. Before he could continue, however, Himawari, basically having had enough of Jura, punches him in the gut and sends him flying back, but Jura quickly responds by flying up and then towards her, and that's when we see her preparing a Biju bomb. Jura preps his own Biju bomb in response. We see them clash and cause an explosion that could be seen from miles away. After seeing this, Jura, having his interest peak, decides that maybe he could use a little bit of his real power, and that's when things go horribly for Himawari. He headbutts her, kicks her into the ground, and we see her struggling to get up while bleeding, showing that yes, Jura is still far stronger than Himawari, and Kurama's power is not going to help her, at least not at this moment. Even Kurama himself states that he underestimated Jura's strength and that they can't win against him even with high potential, which is absolutely true. Having high potential is not going to help you in this instance. It doesn't matter if the person you are going up against is just that much more powerful than you. Jura mentions how Himawari's healing ability seems to surpass both humans and Jinchuriki, specifically mentioning how it almost resembles a tailed beast. Now that could be an indication as to why Himawari's proficiency is so high when using Kurama's chakra, because Kurama reincarnated in her, which as far as we know has never happened before. However, Jura also mentions that this ability also comes with a cost. Basically, the more you heal, the more chakra you use, and since we see Himawari not only heal herself, but also Inojin earlier, by now she should have used up a lot of chakra. This isn't even mentioning the other risk when it comes to healing. Remember, in this universe, the more you heal yourself, the more you're shortening your lifespan. If you don't remember, the reason Hashirama died at such a young age was because his life was shortened because of all the times he had to heal his body during all the fights he was in, from when he was really young all the way up until he was an adult. Now, I personally like this because it not only adds legitimacy to Jura's threat to the world, and it also shows Himawari still has a lot of room to grow, while also acknowledging that this power that she's using has limitations and risks when using it, which for me makes the story much more interesting and much more satisfying to read. Now let's go on to talk about Sarada versus Hidari. We see Hidari still having the wound from Sarada's attack. Unfortunately, this causes Sarada to be a little bit arrogant, saying that she'll allow him to heal if he answers her questions. Now it would be understandable if Hidari was just a regular human, because that injury would be fatal to anyone else. But Hidari isn't just anyone. He disappears into a claw mark and then reappears with his wound completely healed. After that, he looks at Sarada and asks if those eyes of hers are the Sharingan that Jura told him about, which is interesting because in chapter 5 of Two Blue Vortex, Jura mentions that he knows the Senrigan as well. So is it possible that Jura knows about all the dojutsu that actually exist? So maybe he knows about the Jogan and Kawaki's dojutsu and possibly how they work and how to counter them, which if that is the case, it would make Jura a far more dangerous threat than he already is. He also realized that you need the Sharingan to properly use the Chidori, which if you're wondering, the Rinnegan, unlike the Sharingan, doesn't give you precognition. It's not like everyone has the same Rinnegan that Sasuke had, which gave him access to the Rinnegan abilities as well as his Sharingan abilities. Remember, his Rinnegan was unique, it wasn't the same as everyone else's. Hidari goes on to state that he has no idea who Sasuke is because they keep asking him if he has any connection to Sasuke Uchiha. He also goes on to state that he has no idea who he is, and that's why he is in Konoha, which connects to his question that he asked Jura earlier in the story when they were figuring out that they have wants and needs outside of just their basic instinctual goal of eating an Otsutsuki and growing a chakra fruit. Sumire points out that Hidari is specifically targeting Sarada and that they should focus on protecting her. Unfortunately, this also paints a target on her back because now Hidari has to take her and everyone else out, which he does go on to do. Sarada in this moment makes a mistake of taking her focus away from Hidari and towards Sumire as she was making this announcement. Hidari, seeing that as an opportunity, forms a claw mark behind Sarada, puts his hand into his pocket which is connected to his claw marks, and he hits Sarada with a lightning style attack. This attack leaves Sarada completely paralyzed. The other Jonin try to help but get taken out, as I said. Konohamaru tries to remind people he's not trash by aiming a Rasengan at Hidari, but that fails because Hidari disappears into a claw mark and reappears behind Konohamaru, Hidari preparing another Chidori, this time seemingly grabbing Konohamaru's leg to make sure he doesn't get away like Sarada did earlier. But Konohamaru defends with a wind-style attack, which as a reminder is stronger than lightning-style attacks, but the attack still blows him back. Then Hidari shocks Sumire the same way he did Sarada, except Sumire is knocked out cold. Sarada is still conscious, she just can't move because she's been completely paralyzed by the attack, which is very similar to when Sasuke was reintroduced into the story in Naruto Part 2 and he used Chidori Stream, which anyone who got hit by that attack was left paralyzed for a moment. Hidari then tells Sarada that the reason why he is targeting her is because even though he doesn't know who he is, from the beginning he did know about her, so he wonders if he devours her, will he gain the knowledge that he is looking for to discover who he is? Now, I personally liked how this interaction was handled. In the previous chapter, I wasn't a fan of how the start of their fight began. I made that very clear in my review. This chapter, though, I think did help establish that Hidari is very much a threat. However, it could be stated even more by what happens in the next chapter by his confrontation with Boruto and how that gets handled. Speaking of which, let's talk about Boruto in this chapter. So after the last chapter showed us Boruto trying to recover after the Karma Seal nearly activated and Kawaki giving us confirmation that Boruto can't control his Karma Mark, I thought that maybe this was a way to have Boruto be written out of the story for a bit so that other characters can get the spotlight. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. We see Kawaki flying to Jura's location after being told he was targeting Himawari, and Delta asks him a very reasonable question. She mentions how this is the same guy who just a few moments ago kicked your ass. What can you even do when you get there? Kawaki's response is very similar to what Sasuke told Boruto when they were about to go fight Ishiki. Even though he knew there was no chance of winning against him, they still had to go because they couldn't just stand by and do nothing. However, Delta asks him that question again, and this time before Kawaki can answer, they see Boruto zip by them flying at high speeds, and manages to save Himawari, then uses flying Raijin to teleport to Sarada's location and free her from Hidari, who was about to consume her by transforming his arm into a tree, which sets up a possible confrontation between him and Hidari in the next chapter. If he fights Boruto, someone who up until this point has been shown to be almost unstoppable, and wins, that will prove that these Shinjuu are far stronger than we probably thought they were. But if Hidari is joined by Jura, which he most likely will, then it will lessen the threat level in my opinion. Worst case scenario would be Boruto easily taking out Hidari and then him needing to be saved by Jura. Again, personally, I feel like both Jura and Hidari will team up against Boruto, but we'll have to wait and see until the next chapter gets released. Overall, I thought the chapter was okay. Seeing Jura and Hidari dominating in their respective fights was needed to show how dangerous they are. However, that could again be ruined by what happens in the next chapter. Since the next chapter will be the last one in the next volume, I expect there to be some massive cliffhanger that keeps people talking and wanting to read the next volume as we've seen before. Anyway, that's going to be it for me on this chapter, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please leave a like, share the video, subscribe if you're new, and I hope to see you guys for my review of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 12. Bye for now.